Hey guys, Zach here. Let's talk some horror. So, Scream from 1996. It happens to be my second favorite movie of all time, and overall became a very successful horror film that revitalized the slasher genre and the horror genre as a whole. So naturally, when a sequel was announced, there were very high expectations. How can they top what they did in the first movie? Can it be better than the first movie? And that's what we're going to talk about today as we dive into Scream 2 and why it is a successful sequel. So firstly, let's talk about the opening kills. And overall, the opening kills for Scream 2 are on a much bigger scale than the first movie. The first one taking place in a house, while this one takes place in a movie theater. And even though I find the first Scream's opening to be the greatest opening in any horror movie ever, this is still a great way to open the sequel and to show that they're not playing around. The fact that they're showing the movie Stab, which is based on the events from the first Scream, is brilliant, and it keeps with the meta tone of the Scream franchise. Also, it's interesting because with everyone in the theater dressed up as Ghostface, it's very easy for the killers to get away with their crimes and not have anyone know what they're doing because everyone's dressed the same. I just think it's a really brilliant scene, and it's a great way to establish the tone and the seriousness of this sequel. Also important are the returning characters from the first film. Obviously, you got Sidney coming back, you got Gail Weathers coming back, Dewey's back, and Randy's back, who's my personal favorite character. And we'll talk more about Randy later in this video. But really, all the main characters from the first movie changed in this one, especially Sidney, as she's a much stronger woman now, and she's ready and prepared to take on Ghostface when he comes back in this movie. She's ready to fight as soon as she realizes that Ghostface is back. Dewey and Gail also start the movie on rough terms because of what Gail wrote about Dewey in his book, and Dewey taking offense to that. But by the end of the movie, they're brought together because of this tragedy and everything going on, and I think that their character arcs are solid in this film as well. Another returning character, he had a cameo in the first movie, is Cotton Weary, and now that he's out of jail, he wants to be famous and to be on talk shows because he was wrongly accused, and he just wants to profit off this tragedy. But I think he has a great arc as well, as in the end he goes and helps Sidney. He stops the killings, he stops the killers, and he becomes a hero at the end, and he gets the interview that he wants. Also, the fact that they make him a red herring and that he might be the killer this time is very interesting, even though I think most of us didn't really think he would be the killer in this movie. One thing that Scream 2 improves on over the first movie is the body count. The body count is definitely bigger, which Randy does bring up to Dewey when they're talking about sequels and what makes sequels great. If we're going to talk about kills in Scream 2, we have to talk about Randy's death. Not only is Randy's death emotional because we liked him in the first movie and we love him in this movie, and it's sad to see him get killed, but also it's very big for the movie because it shows that no one is safe. If this movie can kill off Randy from part 1, in the middle of this movie, we don't know that Gail, Dewey, or Sidney are going to be safe. Also, that scene itself where Randy's on the phone with the killer and they're talking and he's taunting Randy is just really a great scene, and it shows what the Scream franchise is all about, where you have this killer that's stalking and taunting his victims before he kills them. It's just a really great scene. But R.I.P. Randy, you will be missed, and we all know Randy wouldn't have backed up into that van. He was way smarter than that. But other great deaths also. We have Sarah Michelle Gellar's kill where she's being chased throughout the house. She goes all the way up to the roof, gets thrown off the balcony, and just splats right on the ground. Great scene. I love Sarah Michelle Gellar. Also, when the detective is on top of the car, when it crashes and you just see his face is smushed into the glass, that's a pretty violent death right there. Speaking of that car crash scene, when Ghostface is knocked out cold and Sidney and her friend have to crawl over him out the window. Man, that is such a tense scene. I think that Scream 2 does a great job in building tension and suspense, and that scene is a perfect example of it. Speaking of tense scenes, that scene where Dewey gets stabbed behind the glass and Ghostface is trying to get in and trying to break through to get Gail, and Gail is hiding from Ghostface, and you can see them walking between these shelves, I guess is what they are, and Ghostface is just trying to find her and Gail's hiding. It's such a great tense scene. It's probably my favorite scene in the entire film. So now let's talk about the killer reveal, which is a very important scene in the Scream franchise, and this one is crazy. So Mickey takes off the mask first. He reveals himself first. And honestly, I think Mickey as a killer is kind of underwhelming, as we don't really see him that much throughout the movie. Like with Billy and Stu, they were main characters throughout the whole movie. We constantly saw them around. But with Mickey, some people might be like, who is that guy? When he takes the mask off, you're like, I haven't seen this character in how long in this movie, but he's the killer. I think Timothy Olyphant does a great job in the role, but I think Mickey could have been better executed. But the big reveal of Debbie Salt being Billy Loomis's mother and the second killer is just a great, great twist. And it makes sense. If Billy is killed because of Sidney, why wouldn't Billy's mother want revenge on Sidney? You know, since they're both psychos, I guess everyone in that family is a complete psychopath. But then after the reveal, and you get the fight scene in that theater, and you got the rocks falling on Mrs. Loomis, and you got them fighting all over the stage, and then Cotton comes in, you don't know which side he's going to be on, and then he shoots Mrs. Loomis, and then Sidney, boom, right between the eyes, kills Miss Loomis, and then you get Mickey doing the one last scare where he jumps up, he gets shot and taken out. Overall, a great final act. Do I think it's a better final act than the first Scream? No, but I think it's very close second, and I think it is very well done. So, final thoughts. Scream 2 is not better than the first in my opinion, but I also have the first as my second favorite movie of all time. But the second movie is really close in terms of quality. I think it's my favorite sequel in horror history, and I think it builds upon what the original did in a great, creative way. I also think it's the best sequel in the Scream franchise, by far. I love Scream 3 and I love Scream 4, but they both have problems that I'll probably talk about one day. But Scream 2 is almost on par with Scream 1 for me. So tell me what you guys think about Scream 2, how you rate it compared to the original and then the franchise as a whole. Tell me if you agree with me. Tell me if you like Scream 4 better, Scream 3 better, the original Scream better. Maybe you like Scream 2 better than Scream 1. Let me know in the comments. And with that, Zach has spoken.